recognize, the pediatric community recommends. There are so many others that are on there 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours a day.
On social media.
On social media, every day. That's addiction. As a matter of fact, that's more time than being in school. Think about how much we invest ourselves to know exactly what's happening in our children's schools. We save for our entire lives to be able to move into a particular house or a particular community because we want that school and we want our children to be in that district and we want to be with that principal. And we care about the curriculum that's taught there. We care about the policies and processes and procedures, and we're involved. And there's a mechanism to be involved. We elect school board leaders. We elect leaders that create education policy in the legislature and beyond. We pay taxes associated with that. And we demand that our school systems take our input and that it's synthesized and is part of our children's education. Now imagine that children are spending equal or more time in a different environment where we have none of those levers, where we don't even have a person that we can pick up the phone and call, that has no call centers, no ability to even speak to a human on any situation. And so it is alarming the lack of controls that we have. And the truth of the matter is compared to 10 years ago, youth mental health is in an awful state of affairs. Suicide is up 60% versus 10 years ago for young people. Eating disorders, same amount. Anxiety and depression, even higher, and especially for girls. This is a crisis. Anybody who doesn't recognize that it's a crisis is not in touch with what's going on with our young people these days. It's obligatory for us to turn the tide of that, and it happens in the legislature.
How do we know it's tied to social media, these behaviors?
Is there something else that's happened over the last 10 years? Is there any dramatic change that would cause a spike of that amount? But you're asking a very important question. We're not doing enough research. We have to do more research. And those companies should fund the research. But that doesn't mean that they should be doing their own research and we should be satisfied with that. We need to have independent research bodies, the same way we required of the tobacco industry, who for years said, that's okay, we're studying this, and all of our studies show that this is actually healthy for you. It's invigorating for you. And from that, we had things like cigarette vending machines in high schools, right? Well, we need research to be done independently. And actually, the tricky thing is right now, big tech is not doing research. They're not studying impacts on mental health because they don't want the liabilities associated with studying it. So we do so much in the way of our physical health. People wear Apple Watches and rings and all sorts of wearables, and they know how many steps we take in a day, and what our heart rate is, and if we've fallen, how many hours of sleep we're getting at night, what our nutrition is, all of these things to try and improve our physical health. But there's nothing about our mental health. And that's because it's prohibited. I'm very proud of this state for prioritizing that. Nonetheless, we need to have robust business to help continue to drive the economy here. I'm a business person. I came to the legislature after decades in the business world. All of the innovators are here in California. When it comes to tech, there's a reason why everything was founded in Silicon Valley and continues to grow in Los Angeles and beyond. And I don't think there's any risk of those people moving off to other areas. I think that we're going to stay strong here in California.
And in terms of innovating for young people in these social media companies in general, you guys as lawmakers haven't seen any proposals that they would come up with and say, you know what, we want to turn the algorithm off, or we want to make it less addictive, or we want to provide some educational value.
Well, they all say that. And they all have plans to do that. And it's my sentiment that the plans are more about keeping the regulators off their backs than a genuine plan to provide that wellness for our young people. Until the data improves on youth mental health, particularly around addiction and harms that are caused from that. I think regulators aren't just going to not let go. They're going to, really increase the pressure until there's substantive change.
You mentioned that you want these companies to fund this study, right? To actually to do studies on the mental health aspects of this.
After
Do you
luck
think
with
this is
that.
something they should do, or do you think the state should do that?
Sports, for the same reason we shouldn't go around claiming that 2 + 2 = 7. It's just not true. It is a lie.
I do see this bill, AB 44, as an opportunity to invade individuals' right to privacy, to run afoul of some of our non-discrimination laws in the state, and really, and importantly, it would decimate some of the public safety and well-being of all women.
The debate comes after
is the enemy of democracy. It's the enemy of the Republican form of government. And misinformed or uninformed public cannot make good decisions. And a compliant press helps cushion the public from that fact. When President Kennedy took office, 75% of the public believed in what the government was saying. By the 90s, it was down to 19%.
One witness focused on 3 CIA agents who he believes were complicit in the assassination.
We know now that Richard Helms, James Angleton, and George Joannides were responsible for or complicit in the death of the president, either by criminal negligence or covert action. My recommendations to the task force are: 1, secure and release the personnel file of George Joannides, and 2, ask the CIA to provide a public statement answering the question, why did these 3 men lie to JFK investigators?
Mr. Morley thinks the answers will fulfill the committee's and the Trump administration's goal of full JFK disclosure. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
the White House says Southwest border crossing and weapons offenses. He could face life in prison without parole if convicted in that case. New York does not have the death penalty
He
for
needs
state
to be
charges.
convicted.
And Joni faces a parallel federal indictment over Thompson's killing. He could face the death penalty if convicted in that case. He has not yet been asked to enter a plea to the federal charges.
According to her, almost 140,000 immigrants entered the U.S. illegally in March of last year, a number that's much lower a year later. The Trump administration has been deporting alleged gang members to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. On Monday, the administration admitted that an administrative mistake resulted in a Salvadoran man's deportation and imprisonment. That's despite the fact that a judge had granted him legal protection from deportation. On Tuesday, Levitt said that the individual was a member of the MS-13 gang.
We also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number 3, this individual was a member, actually a leader of the brutal MS-13 gang, which this president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Fact number 4 is that foreign terrorists do not have legal protections in the United States of America anymore.
This comes as top Democrats are suing President Trump over a recent executive order. Trump's action aims to enforce the law against illegal immigrant voting and election dates. The lawsuit alleges that the executive order seeks to impose radical changes on how Americans register to vote, cast a ballot, and participate in our democracy, all of which threaten to disenfranchise lawful voters, and none of which is legal. The suit was filed by the Democratic National Committee, Senator Chuck Schumer, and Representative Hakeem Jeffries. They want the court to declare that the order violates the Constitution and block officials from implementing it. And in other immigration-related news, attorneys general from 26 states are asking the Supreme Court to allow President Trump to keep deporting alleged gang members. Trump used the Alien Enemies Act to deport alleged members of the Trendy Aragua gang. A federal judge recently blocked Trump's ability to implement the law. The president then asked the Supreme Court to overturn that ruling and allow him to use the law for deportations. The High Court might make a decision in the case on Tuesday. Ariane Pastar, NTD.
In the reaction to this and conversations I've had and data I've had on the Signal thing is it's just another example of elected officials being dishonest and not taking accountability when people in their normal lives you got to take accountability for whether you're delivering for your family, delivering at work.
It is important to note that the House Rules Committee will consider this week language to block Congresswoman Ana Paulina Luna's discharge petition to allow for pregnant lawmakers and new mom lawmakers to vote via proxy on the House floor. Now, the discharge petition has 218 signatures thus far, 11 of which are Republican lawmakers. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez.
Over the weekend, he visited a Wisconsin town hall awarding $1 million checks to 2 Wisconsinites who signed an online petition against what he describes as activist judges.
We're obviously seeing like some crazy stuff in DC where it seems like it's like any federal judge can stop any action by the president of the United States. But let me first hand out 2 $1 million checks in appreciation.
The checks came after some legal pushback. The Wisconsin Supreme Court refused to hear a last-minute petition from the state's attorney general to block the checks.
I have groups on the outside that are helping my campaign, and I'm grateful for them helping to spread the message, but I don't control what they do.
His opposition, Judge Susan Crawford, has gained support from billionaire George Soros and others.